the beautiful metaverse, and more specifically from beautiful Danville, Illinois, homeland of the Correllian tradition. And this is Midday with Reverend Don. Welcome. And as you know, if you follow Midday with Reverend Don, you can type your comment or question into whatever platform you're watching on, and it will show up here in my chat room and we can talk directly. And here in Danville, we have had a return of pleasant weather. It's currently 59 degrees, said to get a little warmer later this afternoon, which, considering that it was deep winter just a few days ago, is quite interesting. This weekend, we had several inches of snow and lots of ice, and today it's a beautiful late spring day, still in February. And this, of course, is um, our transitional climactic world. And I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to go day by day. So today, my subject is Correllian Publishing. I intended to be joined today by Chris Copeland from Correllian Publishing, but she was unable to join me at the last moment. So I'm going to talk about some of the books that we've recently brought out from Correllian Publishing, some of the ones that we're going to bring out from Correllian Publishing, and various related subjects. Hello to Antonio in the chat room. It's good to see you, Antonio. And I'm looking forward to seeing Antonio at the upcoming illustration, where I believe he will be in attendance. We were talking about that yesterday with Brenda Pregande, and that will be quite the event. So today, as I say, I was going to talk a little bit about, and hello to Steve in the chat room. It's good to see you, Steve. Some of our books from Correllian Publishing. One of our most recent books is the Correllian Book of the Dead. I see my camera is mirrored at the moment, but this is the Book of the Dead. And this is an examination of Correllian ideas about death and dying and the afterlife and reincarnation. And it deals with everything from the idea of what happens to us when we die, the nature of the afterlife, the nature of incarnation, to how to communicate with the dead, how to bring through the messages of the ancestors, how to properly interact with the ancestors in a way that will enrich your life. And these are the main subjects of the Correllian Book of the Dead. We also talk about things like a formal Correllian funeral, ancestor feasts, and so forth that, for the most part, have in the past been limited to the Correllian family and members of the Council of Ancestors, or of Council of Elders, many of whom are now ancestors, and many other times also just ordinary Correllians. But we'll see if it does not become more common in the future. Antonio says, yes, I'm very thrilled to finally meet everyone in person. And Lord Don, I have a long overdue handshake for you. I will look forward to that. The Book of the Dead starts by talking about ancestor altars. And hello to Christine in the chat room, and hello to Diane in the chat room. Diane says, may I get a reading? Yes, I am available for readings. You can actually get a reading from me at Correllianpublishing.com, or you can IM me at through Facebook Messenger to set one up, or email me at donlewishp@aol.com. And I am available for readings in person or online. And the Book of the Dead has been out now for a few months, but is still selling well, and it has lots of things that, in some cases, are talked publicly about at this level for the first time in this book, but had previously been talked about at second or third degree. And other things that we talk about all the time. I mean, I've talked about the nature of incarnation on this program, so it's not really a surprising subject, but we do talk about it in the book at some detail. We also recently brought out 40 Spells to Better Magic by Ed the Pagan. And this is a series of 40 spells intended to help you improve your magical practice. And it includes everything from what is a spell, to the best known candle magic spell, to Chaos and the Witch, the 5 skills of a techno mage, Astral Projection, A Witch's Journey, Moon Lore and Magic, A Witch's Whisper, um, The Power of Luck, and many other interesting subjects within that 40 spells, including the synergy of synchronicity, deepening shared vision, the enchantment of repetition. Dandelions are magical. That's a particularly interesting one. And hello to Mary in the chat room. And Mary joins us from Divination TV. And every Thursday night, Mary does Tarot Thursday. And if you're looking for a simple free reading, that is a wonderful place to go and get one. Hello to Reverend Michael in the chat room. It's good to see you, Reverend Michael. And I hope you're feeling better than you were recently. It's so good to see everyone in the chat room and get to interact with you. I'd have to say that is the favorite part of this broadcast for me. Now, I also want to talk about some of the books that are upcoming. Well, I want to talk about one more that's already out, Travel Magic. Travel Magic has been out for a while, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It's a book about travel and magic. And let me tell you some of the things that are in Travel Magic. Travel Magic is by Lisa McSherry, and it includes subjects such as the nice thing about Travel Magic is that it does not assume that you already know what you're doing. It starts from the idea that that you do not have a background, although it's certainly very fascinating even if you do. But it is a good book to learn basic magic if you don't already know it, as well as to learn specific ideas of magic if you do already have a good background in magic. So it includes, for example, intention is the start, meditation, breath work, sympathetic magic, symbols are the key, aligning inner with outer. In terms of preparation for travel, using magic as a location prompt, making offerings at sacred sites, what is appropriate, what is not, talking to the divine, simple computer magic, practical magic, thoughts on what to pack in a magical way, working with sigils, bubble of protection, calling the guardians, travel deities who are particularly invoked for travel and travel protection, finding a deity for your journey, lots of different aspects of what you need to know regarding travel and magic. Don't panic, coping with inevitable trouble, because that happens in travel. Snow and ice magic, first aid, practical magic in terms of help while traveling, and a wide range of spells and charms, a traveler's spell, an airplane spell, um, a charm to avert anxiety during travel, a charm for safe travels, um, destination divination, um, a fast sigil for protection, which you might need sometimes during travel. I always say that if magic is not going to help you if the car is speeding off the road, what are you doing with it? This is an example of something that you can do when you need it. Safe travel spells, um, and so on through many interesting things. A travel bottle, um, a travel spell jar, a spell for a positive outlook in your travels. Lots of interesting things, and a fascinating book on the subject of travel. And so I highly recommend Travel Magic to you. And of course, the book we have about to come out is Reverend Don's Book of Astrology. And hello to Mark in the chat room. It's good to see you, Mark. And Reverend Don's Book of Astrology is, I don't know that I'd call it an introductory look at astrology, but it is suitable if you don't have a background in astrology, or if you do. Reverend Don's Book of Astrology is about how to interpret your chart, particularly the position of the planets and the aspects between the planets, and what that means to you as a person. It is not about sun sign astrology, though there is a chapter on that. It is the much fuller um, interpretation of a chart. And hello to Michelle in the chat room. It's good to see you, Michelle. When you look at a chart, it's not just where your sun is, it's where all those planets are. It's the signs they're in, it's the way they interact with one another, it's the houses they're in. These things are um, all very important in understanding a chart, whether it's a natal chart or a transit chart or a comparison chart. They all rely on this knowledge. And this book is about how to make those interpretations, how to understand, for example, um, what the position of the different planets means. And I suppose we could take a moment and talk about the position of some of my own planets to help you to understand um, what exactly we're talking about. For example, my sun is in Gemini. And this certainly shows in my life, but people often don't find me reminiscent of what they expect a Gemini to be. But if you look at my career, I've been all about education, communication, media, writing, artwork, all very Gemini subjects. Um, so, in that sense, I've been very much a Gemini. But emotionally, that doesn't tend to be the energy that people pick up from me. And that's because of the position of other planets. Um, my um, Mercury and Venus are conjunct in Taurus. And if you don't know what that means, that's what this book is about. But what that means is that my Mercury, which deals with the way I think, and my Venus, which deals with the way I feel, are both ruled by Taurus, which is a very earthy, patient um, sign. It is a sign that is very stable in its way, very, very different from what you would expect from a Gemini, and much more the kind of energy that I understand I often seem to put off for people. But with thought and emotion, both ruled by Taurus, that only makes sense. My moon is in Aquarius, which tends to give me very expansive ideas and a lot of desire for innovation. I think that my life has shown that also. I think we've talked about that extensively on this program. Uh, in my chart, you find that in my moon. Um, and I think that that is something that's been certainly very important in my life. My ascending sign is Sagittarius, which is all about philosophy and also adventure and travel, uh, which I would have to say at this point in my life, I've had quite a bit of. If I do eventually write the autobiography, it will be quite the book. Um, there have been many adventures and misadventures and lots of travel to many interesting places. Um, and lots of adventures that the Sagittarius ascendant has quite enjoyed, and the um, the Taurus, Mercury, and Venus have not always been equally thrilled at. It all depends which ones we're talking about. My Mars is in Virgo, and what that means is I tend not to worry too much, or at least not to react too badly to large situations. I'm more likely to um, to express frustration over small details. Doesn't mean I don't feel them necessarily with the larger situations, but I have more of a focus on keeping my patience there and a little quicker to speak up about smaller things because they're smaller things. And Venus or and Virgo always does have a focus on details. These are some of the things you would find in in my chart, and some of the things you'd learn to interpret from Reverend Don's Book of Astrology. And I want to tell you that we have a special discount going this day um, on the subject of these two last books, Travel Magic, whether in print form or the ebook, and Reverend Don's Book of Astrology. If you use the code Stars and Roads, you will get 10% off either of these books. That's Stars and Roads, all in capitals, all is one word. Um, and we are offering that discount today. And so if you're interested in any of those, this is a very good time to get them. And of course, all of our books are available at CorrellianPublishing.com, and we've also offered um, something new. And let me see if I can find quickly the link for you. We are also offering um, readings now through Correllian.com. You can find me as a reader, um, and you will find that under our general catalog, I believe. And we've only just put it in, however. We'll certainly be promoting it more. But I've been reading since I was 9, but I've been reading professionally since I was in my early 20s. And I've been reading for a long time. So you can get a 10-minute reading, you can get a 30-minute reading, you can get a 60-minute reading with me, all through CorrellianPublishing.com. You will also in the future be able to get those through Divination TV. And a variety of other places. And if you happen to be local here in the Danville area, on Saturdays I read at the Earth Spirit Emporium on North Street in downtown Danville. So if you'd like an in-person reading, that is also an option. And these are some of the things that I'm available for reading-wise. For many years, I really only was doing readings for charitable events, usually a few times a year. Um, but now that I'm retired, I'm doing it far more often. And if you're interested in one, those are the places to get them. And we will certainly be talking more about that in future. And I'd like to ask if anyone has any questions in the chat room about anything available from Correllian.com. We, of course, have the Correllian degree books available at CorrellianPublishing.com. We have Reverend Don's Books of Questions available at CorrellianPublishing.com. If you're not familiar with the Books of Questions, they take the several hundred questions that I spoke to in the decade that I was doing Reverend Don's vlog and put them into book form. And these questions deal with everything from the most sublime issues in the universe to things that you would almost think are jokes, but actually are not. And I've always said that some of my most favorite questions were the ones that sounded silly when they were asked, but actually had really good answers. And I was always grateful for people who asked that sort of question. Um, some of them came from people who were just curious about certain things, like, for example, the use of Yu-Gi-Oh cards in divination or magic. That had a very interesting answer. Um, Whether there is such a thing as a spell to turn yourself into a mermaid, you might find that an interesting answer. Or the idea that magic users can throw fireballs. I believe that's in there too. And probably not the answer you're expecting. And one of the things I really enjoyed about that process of doing the vlog was that often I could tell from the question the kind of answer that many people would give. And it wasn't the answer I was going to give because I took them all very seriously, even if they seemed like maybe they weren't that serious. One of the most interesting questions that I remember had to do when Kenny Rogers passed away. Um, the question was asked about whether it was really a good idea to know when to hold them and know when to fold them, know when to walk away and know when to run, which actually became a very profound question um, because it really is. And it is, I think, vitally important to know the difference between those sorts of situations, to choose your fights, to know what's important and what is not. And these are some of the things we talked about in those books. And Mary in the chat room says, "You have never seen me lose my Aries sun temper." Yes, Aries is known for temper. Aries is also known for its ability to start wonderful projects. I have known an awful lot of Aries over the years in the psychic business, and many of them doing remarkable things. Astrology really is a fascinating subject, and it's far more fascinating when you're looking at an entire chart and looking at all these influences that come together in a single person rather than just looking at sun signs. Although I do say that I have found sun sign astrology to have its uses. I used to read newspaper horoscopes back in the days when there were things like newspapers, and will sometimes read them online. And I found that it can be quite useful for me, partly because I believe that this sort of thing works when you decide that it's going to work for you and tell spirit that it can give you messages in that form. And I have found that astrology, sun sign, popular sun sign astrology, has also been useful for me. But the more complex astrology is also useful in many different ways. One of the things we talk about in Reverend Don's book of astrology is, what is astrology and why does it work? I've heard all sorts of ideas on why the position of the stars and the planets have anything to do with our lives. And my answer is they don't. That is not how astrology works. It cannot be how our general Western astrology works, because the place where we position the stars and planets in our charts is not where they're actually at. It's where they were 2,000 years ago. So why would this work? Well, it seems to me the answer is that it marks out patterns in time in a mathematical way that the one-time position of stars and planets was used to mark. And those patterns continue repeating, even though the stars and planets have changed their position. And they really are not the actual origin of anything. And plus, when we look at the constellations, they only exist from certain vantage points on this planet. They are not actually, in most cases, stars that are all that terribly close to one another. They just look it from here. Um, but as a means of noting the patterns in time, I think it's been quite effective. And so to me, astrology is actually a kind of chronomagic. It is, and hello to Nikki in the chat room. It's good to see you, Nikki. Nikki says, "Hello, Lord Don and everyone." And it's good to see you, Nikki. And I love not only being able to interact with the people in the chat room, but seeing them interacting with each other. Yesterday, we had Brenda Pregande as our guest, Reverend Brenda Pregande, who is part of the organizing team for the upcoming illustration and double investiture. We had a lovely talk with her, and really good interaction with the chat room. And lots of people had comments and questions, and that was delightful. And if you're not already signed up for the illustration, I would recommend that you can consider coming to it if you're able to, or that you watch the broadcast of the different things happening. You can find out more about illustration at correllian.com/illustration 2024.html. And this is, in its way, a historic event because it's going to be a double investiture of the new first priest and priestess, something that has not happened since 1979 and something that's never happened in a public ceremony before. So it will be, in its way, I think, quite a historic event. And because that's not really how these offices normally pass on, I don't know that you'll have a chance to see another one quite like this. Ordinarily, only one investiture would happen at a time. But owing to the fact that Lady Crystal and I are both retired in office, this will be a double investiture. If you're not familiar with the idea of retirement in office, this is a Correllian concept where the incumbent will retire from the daily exercise of the office, and someone new will come in to exercise it, but the retired office holder is still there to advise when needed and to guide when needed. And that way, their years of experience are not lost. It's going to be quite the event, so I hope that you'll consider coming out. And once again, I want to remind you that we have a special discount today using the code Stars and Roads in all capitals, all one word, and this will get you 10% off of either um, Travel Magic or Reverend Don's Book of Astrology. And so if you're interested in either of those books, this is a very good time to get it. And with that, I see that we're coming down toward the end of our half hour. I hope that you're having a lovely day. Um, we're having a lovely day here in Danville. It is the warmest day so far. If you remember on Imbolc, I had pointed out that the omen here locally was that winter was not over. And it certainly proved to be the case. This last weekend was as wintry as winter needs to be. And it may not be over yet. But at this point in the year, there can only be so much left. So, as a person who walks with a cane and is not fond of snow and ice, I'm quite happy with that. One of the things that, every year we follow the national rodent Punxsutawney Phil. But the problem with that, although I think it's a lovely tradition, but this is a local omen. Whatever Punxsutawney Phil may see may very well be true for Punxsutawney. It may not be true in your area. You should do your own omen. And this is generally how omens work. They are a very personal thing, a very local thing, as a general rule. There are some exceptions. If it is an omen for a country or an organization, it may have a more widespread effect. But if it's an omen for weather, obviously it's going to be local. And again, I think we have a little more winter coming, but not very much because we're almost at the end of February. And that does tend to say that there can only be so much. Although I will say I once remember a snowstorm in May here in Illinois in the late 1970s. That was pretty attention-getting. I certainly will not easily forget it. One of the really striking things was that there were roses already in bloom, covered in snow. A very striking visual to remember. And I also remember once in Chicago seeing snow flurries on my birthday, which was June 11th. I've never seen that before or since, but I now know that it's possible. But I don't think this year. So I hope that I hope that you've enjoyed the program. I hope that you're having a lovely day. I'm going to type the discount into the chat room. So that you have it. This will appear on most of the pages. But not quite all of them. And I'm going to put that into the chat room now, in case you're interested. And with that, I see that we've come to the end of our half hour. And I'm going to close with our prayer as we normally do. And I hope that you have a wonderful day. I'll be back tomorrow, and I will look forward to seeing you then. Divine Mother Goddess, Divine Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you for all that you do for us in our lives. And I ask you to be with our intended guest today, Chris, and help her to feel better soon. And I ask you to be with all of our viewers and friends and help them to have a wonderful day today and every day. Help us all to reach the potential of our lives, to have the adventures that await us with joy and blessings. Beloved Mother Goddess, beloved Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you with great love and thanks, and knowing you're always with us, but from respect, we thank you for your presence, and may you be blessed now and always. And I thank you for your presence, and may you be blessed now and always, and I will see you tomorrow.